All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the LOOPcast. Got a nice Monday morning episode for you. Monday at noon. Always, we will be here. Shout out to Daniel Peters first in chat. Respect that. Erica made a request. She wanted to start the show off with a specific image and post from the Babylon Bee. That post is DeSantis says he will try running again when he is a senile 75-year-old. Unfortunately, that is some humor, but Governor DeSantis, governor of Florida, has dropped out of the presidential race, shuttering his campaign. It looks like, and Nikki Haley did say, this is going to be a two-man race. That might be wishful thinking, but it looks like there really are two only options here in the Republican primary. Erica, Josh, news surprise you guys, or did you guys see this one coming?
Was not a surprise. I guess the surprising factor for me was the timing. We talked last week at length about, DeSantis will probably hang in there to at least pass South Carolina so he can whoop Nikki Haley on her home turf, but was not to be. He stepped down. I have to say, I'm handing it to him. My estimation of him was already pretty high, and my respect just went higher because I think he saw the writing on the wall. Very classy exit speech. He did endorse Donald Trump. And I think the message is like, look, we gotta all pull together. We've got to unite because the priority is defeating Joe Biden, or crooked Joe Biden, as Trump likes to call him. So that was first takes there. Little surprised on the early timing. That's about it.
I did see that Trump did put to rest the DeSanctimonious nickname. I got a good chuckle out of that.
He is retired. I think it was the first time I've heard him address DeSantis with the proper name in over a year. So that was kind of refreshing.
Yeah. Honestly, I thought Trump could have done better. That was
not his best work.
It was
mid-range, nickname as far as they go. But I guess I was a little surprised at the timing, but it was the smartest play for him because there was an outside chance that DeSantis would get like 10% in the New Hampshire primary because it's a two-person contest. Even if he had stayed in, it's quite, I would have suspect that Trump would have got about 55%, Nikki getting like 40, and there's not much left over. I mean, he might have, DeSantis was facing single digits possibility in New Hampshire. And, even if you said, well, I wasn't really campaigning that hard for it, and I'm going to do better in South Carolina, I agree with him. There was no real shot at victory. And now you have a situation where I think Trump will win by 15, 20 points in New Hampshire. And Nikki Haley faces the prospect of going into South Carolina, where she was governor, and losing by 40 points to Donald Trump in that state.
You think that's the nail in the coffin if she loses in South Carolina?
I mean, obviously it's over. The question
100%.
is if she can't win in New Hampshire with a bunch of independents and Democrats crossing over and voting for her, how is she going to win in South Carolina, which has a lot more conservative voters? And if I were Nikki, obviously, I would quit after New Hampshire, realizing, I was hoping I could defeat Trump here and use that as momentum for South Carolina. The problem is she faces the embarrassment of losing in her home state of South Carolina. And I think, I don't know, I said 40 points. I mean, maybe it's only 25 points, but it would be embarrassing no matter what. And so, the race is functionally, I think, over. It's just, it has to play itself out a little bit again. So, I think Ron DeSantis made the right call. It's kind of a bummer because, I'm in Michigan. It's like the fourth state to vote. And it's like, oh, it's already over. It's like, okay.
You don't get to be a part of the fun.
You don't count.
Yeah. I like but
especially, and he's done such a great job as governor of Florida. I'm just personally looking forward to now moving the sites to defeat Joe Biden here. It just feels like a lot of the differences that we've had on the Republican side of the aisle are minor. And obviously the major differences are with the Democrats and what they kind of see as the vision, and Joe Biden, obviously. So if we can all kind of get back to picking apart real problems that we see in the country instead of arguing over some minutia about.
Well, let me say it this way. Presidential primaries can be very nasty things. And I see a lot of guys who back Trump who are saying, boy, online supporters of Ron DeSantis were nasty and mean. And I'm like, really? Really?
Look in the mirror, Doug.
Yes, yes, some of them were. And you know what? A lot of the Trump guys were too. And there were some people who are classy that support each candidate. They're like, I respect differences of opinion. But were there people throwing mud on both sides? both sides. There were Trump fans throwing mud at DeSantis guys, and then they pretend like I can't believe we're getting this treatment. I mean,
All right, well,
politics isn't beanbag,
Let's get into the more interesting conversation now, though. I think VP, we did title this VEEPStakes. Erica, we have in the notes doc, let's allow Erica to talk. And that is a friendly reminder that we need often. So Erica,
wipe that smirk off your face, Mercer. Yeah.
Talk first. Come on.
Josh, best behavior today. Erica, though, you saw the Donald Trump Jr. speech on
Don
Newsmax.
Jr. Yeah.
Kind of thrown for a loop there. What do you think is going on in terms of the VP race, and what he's maybe thinking about for who he would choose to run with him?
Right. So Don Jr. went on Newsmax this past weekend. And of course, he was asked, like, is your dad going to pick? Who's he going to pick for VP? Your dad listens to you. And so he threw out all these names. The big one, of course, was Tucker Carlson. He also mentioned J.D. Vance, came up a couple of times. Vivek, of course. The interviewer mentioned Ben Carson, less enthusiastic from Don Jr. there, but he was kind of gunning for Tucker Carlson there. And I don't see Trump picking someone with a personality that can compete with him. And it's hard again, Trump is so unpredictable in so many ways. At least to me, he is kind of a black box. So who knows? But for me, that personality that Tucker brings and just the fame would be a real turnoff for the way that Trump sees himself, I believe. Same with Vivek. I like Vivek. I liked his message. I liked the way he campaigned. I would rather see him as, we've talked about this internally, as press secretary. Wouldn't that be great to have White House press briefs with Vivek talking to the White House press corps? I would love to watch that for 4 years. I would just watch popcorn.
Can I interject one thought?
Well, just one.
If Vivek were the vice presidential nominee, though, you get to see him debate Kamala Harris in the vice presidential.
Oh, don't tease me. I just got really excited. That would be so fun.
And here's another thing. He spent how much money on his presidential run so far in the primaries? He's got a lot of money, so he could write his own check.
That's true.
Trump's the businessman. He'd be like, hey, maybe this guy will run and he'll join my ticket and spend $300 million. Not the dumbest idea in the world, honestly.
The bottom line for me is I am not ready for Vivek to leave the national stage, because I could listen to him talk pretty much all day.
I don't think he will.
I don't think he will either. I think this was just his first little foray, as it were.
To Josh's point, though, I saw someone was saying as a pro for Nikki Haley is that she gets the most super PAC funds. I was like, these people have not learned a single thing. The whole Trump campaign was, I am not bought and paid for. I run by myself. And people are like, oh, well, look, all these super PAC people love Nikki Haley. I was like, that is not a plus. Who is that a plus to? I don't know.
It's just the war machine. All the people who get money from Boeing want Nikki Haley because she likes to bomb other countries. But no, I don't. And by the way, Trump came out this week and he's like, no. He said Nikki Haley wasn't presidential timber. And he goes, by the way, that means, not for vice president either. And so that kind of put, I think, to bed a lot of these rumors that he might pick her, which is a relief to me. If there is thought that Donald Trump would consider a female running mate. There's some people, maybe Elise Stefanik, she's a congressman from New York. Others have suggested South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. But I'd like to put out another potential dark horse that people aren't thinking about enough. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who served Trump as press secretary, and she's done a great job, and she can communicate flawlessly. She was just on, I think it was CBS Face the Nation, and just had a great soundbite talking about the contrast. He goes, you'll basically have two presidents running, and you'll be able to compare the first term of Trump to the first term of Biden. And the voters will have an excellent opportunity to make a decision on who they think would be best to lead the country for the next 4 years. And she's really good at that kind of contrast. She can cut through a lot of the BS. I think she'd be a good potential. So keep your eyes on that.
And I'd love to see her against Kamala on the stage too.
Well,
that would be
that's a low bar.
Very satisfying.
Someone with a standard IQ and decent vocabulary could probably destroy Kamala Harris on the stage.
Funding her campaign.
But Erica, question then for you: if you could have an ideal, what kind of characteristics would you want to see in a potential VP? Who are you thinking about?
Yeah, I think ideal world, I would want to go around DeSantis. A DeSantis Trump for me would be ideal. I don't know if how realistic that is.
You mean Trump
Again,
DeSantis, but yeah.
a Trump DeSantis. So did I say
Hey, wishful
DeSantis
thinking.
Trump? That was wishful thinking.
Just saying.
Although Trump as VP would be absolutely insane. But I think, yeah, for me, DeSantis, just for the future of the country, even JD Vance, I would love to see a solid leader, proven track record. I feel like Trump could, if it was DeSantis, Trump could be the wild card. He could, do his cute little way that he talks and everyone goes wild and all that. And then DeSantis behind the scenes could actually be getting stuff done. And that for me would be an ideal lineup. Again, given Trump's sort of lackluster, oh, thanks, Ron, you did a good job this race. I don't know how likely that is actually to happen. Yeah, I'm excited about the dark horse, though. Huckabee Sanders. That had not crossed my mind, Josh. She's not on the radar, really. So if we're going to go female, and I'm not a fan of this whole, like, we need a female. Like, I just want someone qualified. I don't care what sex
She's
they
great,
are.
though.
Yeah, but she is. She's really great. But for me,
I have
world,
seen,
DeSantis.
for example, shout out Daniel Peters, first one in the chat,
yeah.
but Lee Zeldin, Ben Carson, Chrissy Noem. I get the Lee Zeldin talk because I think someone said somewhere that it would be someone from New York. I think either he himself or Don Jr. was talking about that. Chrissy Noem, I've seen that thrown around. I would like to remind everyone, she was horrible on the gender stuff in North Dakota.
I agree.
And she basically had to tuck her tail because people told her, this is a terrible idea. But I don't forget stuff like that. It'd be like if
I'm not suggesting
from Ohio. I know you're not, Josh. I'm talking about Daniel Peters here is suggesting that. And I've actually seen a lot of other people. We do a live show now. We got some interaction. But yeah, I've seen other people kind of bring it up. And I have not forgotten that about Chrissy Noem. I know that she's kind of exciting, and Trump likes to surround himself with rather good-looking women. But it's just, someone said Trump always has good-looking women he puts around him, and then people that he can outshine. So Mike Pence was ideal because Mike Pence is just nice guy. He'll shake the hands, whatever. Mike Pence was never going to outshine Trump. Lee Zeldin's kind of an interesting potential. I know the New York combination, but yeah, I think the ideal would be Ron DeSantis, in my opinion.
For Trump, Vivek would also be good because he's a very good spokesman, and he never tries to outshine Trump. I mean, that was the whole point of his
super
campaign.
deferential.
Yeah, people just felt like even when he was running for president, Vivek was always like, as long as it's okay, Mr. Trump, I'm gonna say this. I always felt like it was deferential, even though they were both running for the same position. So
some people are saying that he almost planted him, like Trump planted Vivek and to basically just wreck people.
Stranger
and then
things
drop
have
out.
happened than that. Yeah, I would.
Very true. Okay, so this is kind of a Josh is licking his chops in this segment. We have a mailbag question submitted, and we have been called something we have not been called before. So I'm going to read it out for everyone. So probably I could dig this up somewhere, but I'm not sure where to. So I asked the Master Trio my question. Master Trio.
Thanks. Master Trio.
Hypothetically speaking, if the new ballot for November is set and there are two elderly men on said ballot, Trump and Biden, for instance, who knows? What is the official protocol if one of those candidates has a health event and makes them unable to serve? It's not out of the realm of possibility. Both of the potential candidates are up there in age. Does it go to the prospective committee, the DNC or RNC, to select a candidate for election day? Just curious if anyone can answer this question. Thanks. Keep up the good work. God bless. Robin S., Nashville, Tennessee. Shout out, Robin. Thank you for submitting this.
So the question was if it was after election day or before. It doesn't matter really, I guess. But
I guess answer both. If Biden, unfortunately,
we actually had a weird situation like this when I was growing up in Minnesota, where the candidate was running for governor was disgraced and he was booted. Basically, took himself out of contention like days before the election, and then the party scrambled and picked somebody, and everyone just voted for that candidate. But when it comes to the president of the United States, it's an interesting operation. You're actually not really even voting for the presidential candidate. I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, so in Michigan, I'll come and there'll be Joe Biden and Donald Trump, right? And if you vote for Donald Trump, you're technically voting for, 14 men and women who are going to cast their ballot for Donald Trump in the Electoral College. So imagine the scenario, let's say the day after the election, the results come pouring in, and then Joe Biden, let's say, dies, or the other candidate. Well, December 15th is when all the electors congregate in their state capitals and cast their ballots. So if it's New York State and Biden won New York State, but he has died, those electors don't have to vote for Joe still. They could just vote for, because Kamala will be sworn in as president because he'll have died before his term's over. And they'll vote for Kamala Harris for president. And then she'll say, and by the way, my running mate will be, and she'll pick somebody, who knows, someone not from California. And that will be the new ticket. It'll be, let's say, Kamala Harris and I don't know, who's another AOC. Just to pick a name.
No, don't say that.
And so then all the Democratic electors from states that they won will vote for Kamala Harris and AOC, right? Now let's say
girl boss ticket.
Let's say it's a catastrophic event where like literally Trump and Biden were going to shake hands, and there was a terrorist attack and they both died. Well, in that case, again, all the Republican electors would gather in their state capitals, and they would vote. The RNC would say, well, we're going to go with Vivek because that was the guy that Trump had wanted as his running mate, let's say. Okay. And so then they all vote for Vivek Ramaswamy, and Ramaswamy says, you know what? I want DeSantis as my running mate, whatever. And so then they all vote for that. And then on January 6th, you might have heard of that day before, 2025, the House and the Senate will, receive these votes, and then they'll certify the election results. And that's what happens.
Okay. Have you guys seen the show Designated Survivor?
Yeah,
I did. I loved it. Actually.
I watched that. Yeah, it was kind of fun.
Someone was like, "You have to watch this show." Was super adamant about it. It might have even been you, Josh. I can't remember. And I was disappointed. Everyone was like, "This is a great show ever." It was
like the first 5 episodes were really fun.
Yeah, but the effects aged so bad, I couldn't do it. I'm sure that I just could not get past the effects were so bad. I was disappointed. If there's any Designated Survivor fans out there, I apologize. I just couldn't do it. There's been some really bad, emergency case movies and shows about the White House going down. White House Down was, who was that with? It was a B-list actor.
Butler.
Unbelievably bad. Yeah, Gerard, he killed everyone with a pistol. He went through all the terrorists gone with a pistol. I was like, how many shots could possibly be in a pistol there? Anyway, sorry, that's really off topic, but yeah, that's your answer. Please. Robin S. We got to keep it. We got to keep it moving. I pray. Could we all just say a quick prayer that Kamala Harris and AOC never run together? That would be White House down, basically, if that ever happened. So,
oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. This is a good question though that just came up. We talk about this sometimes, but DeSantis can't be vice president, right? Because both president and vice president can be from the same state. So good question, but we're early enough in the campaign.
No,
yeah.
That's not,
go for it.
Not quite true. They can be from the same state. They can. The 11th Amendment places a penalty. What it says is that electors, we have electors from each of the 50 states as well as DC. Electors cannot vote for a candidate for president that's the same state as and vice president if they're the same state as they are. So if Donald Trump decides to pick Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump remains a citizen of Florida, the 30 electors in Florida can still vote for Donald Trump for president, and every other state, he could win 49 states, let's say, and they all vote for Trump. But the electors from Florida would be prohibited from voting for both Trump and DeSantis if they're both from Florida, because they would both be from the same state as they are. So everyone in every other state could vote for both of those candidates. Only Florida electors couldn't cast their ballot for both. So they could vote for Trump, 30 of them vote for Trump, and then they would have to vote for some other candidate for vice president. They could write in, Kristi Noem or something like that. Why does that matter? Mercer. Well, I am legally able to run, and I'm not a Floridian. But the problem would then be if let's say Trump has exactly 82 votes and he's president, but then DeSantis wouldn't have 282 electoral votes. He would have 252, and the Democrat wouldn't have 270 either. So that election would be kicked over to the Senate. And if the Senate is still run by the Democrats, they could elect Kamala Harris to be vice president again. So you would have Trump as president and Kamala Harris as vice president. Disaster. So how do you fix this? If Trump really does want Ron DeSantis as his running mate, then he flies up to New Jersey. He has a house in Belvedere, New Jersey, and he switches his registration and becomes a citizen of New Jersey. And it's taken care of. It's actually quite simple. That's what happened in 2000. Dick Cheney was a citizen of Texas at the time because he had represented Wyoming in Congress from like 1989 to 96 or something like that, or whatever it was. And then he lived in Dallas. He worked for Halliburton for the War Machine. And then George W. Bush, he's governor. He's like, hey, could you, help me figure out who I should have as my running mate? And he came up with a list of a bunch of candidates. And then at the end, Bush is like, yeah, I just want you. And Cheney's like, okay. Then he hopped on a plane, flew to Wyoming, registered, because he still had a house up there, and became a citizen of Wyoming. No problem.
Yeah, this is kind of like the equivalent of in high school sports. There'd be kids from different school districts, and they would like, oh, I have a P.O. box in, this county, so I can play for this rival high school. And everyone's kind of looking at each other like, we kind of know what's going on here, right? Like this isn't really above board, but we're all going to be like, well, he's a good running back. So
just like these T-ball teams, I'm sure that kid's really 13.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The red shirts. Those are the red shirts.
So, yeah. I mean, it's just a penalty that is, at the end of the day, it would be taken care of long before the voting were started. So,
yeah. Man, what a swing and a miss on Dick Cheney. Eh? He did indeed make money off the Iraq war. But we move on now. So this is kind of fun. The LOOPcast actually took a little bit of a field trip with the rest of Catholic Vote here. So we actually went to St. Augustine, Florida. La Florida, as I've been told, is the region of the country. It's basically the east coast of Florida, so the Atlantic side. And I learned a lot. And I'd have to say this is a real journey of self-discovery for my misinformation, my Protestant misinformation coming from my education. And we got an amazing tour of this place. They call it the Sacred Acre. It's home to statues of Our Lady of Leche. The first Catholic Mass in America was said there. It was actually discovered before. A lot of people are like, oh, Columbus discovered America. No, the Spanish were there before that. Menendez was there.
Bro. The first Mass that was celebrated in what would become the United States. Yeah.
Well,
and the Spanish didn't come before Columbus. What are you talking about?
Yeah, they did.
I think he means the Viking. The Vikings, buddy.
You're gonna talk about the Vikings?
I mean, like
I love the Vikings. They discovered North America.
The Spanish landed in Florida in 1565. That's 70 years after Columbus. What are you talking about, bro?
Okay. We're gonna move on. So basically, they were talking about how
his journey of self-discovery continues.
Continues. But what I found interesting,
they landed there before the Mayflower.
You're not gonna let me.
That's true.
You're not gonna let me talk about what I want to talk about. Or are you just gonna keep?
I'm trying to save your brother.
All right. Well, I'm trying to. I'd like to discuss what I learned. So we went to St. Augustine, and they were talking about the differences between the mission territory in California and mission territory in La Florida. Again, this east coast of Florida. And what I found was that the Spanish, being Catholic, actually brought Christianity to a lot of these Indian tribes, and they were more receptive to the message of Christ because they already had a belief system in one God. So when they came, they were like, look, we actually have access to God through his son, Jesus Christ, who's a human being. Many of these Indian tribes were very receptive to that message. So shout out to the Franciscans. The Franciscans really did a number converting a lot of these Indian tribes. And what was interesting was the Indians themselves, they actually built churches in the middle of their town, tribe, whatever you'd like to call it, centering that around life. They actually removed what was there before and they built a church there, often erecting these large crosses to be assigned to missionaries that, hey, we're friendly to this message. We're friendly to Christianity. And the Franciscans were actually very successful with converting a lot of them. But the difference being in California and mission territory, the Christians actually erected a lot of churches over there, and they had Indians come from where they were in their tribes, basically having to betray their people to come become Christians and live in these communities, much more divisive, rather than the Florida model, which was received pretty organically, seemingly, from a lot of these Indian tribes. And this was a cool opportunity that I learned about, but there were these martyrs, Appalachian martyrs. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but Antonio Cupa, he's also kind of known as Inja. I'm bad at Spanish, but it's noble leader. And there was about 50 of these braves from the Appalachian Nation that would go around converting other Indian tribes because they had already been raised in this Franciscan tradition, Christian tradition. And this Antonio specifically was gifted with speech as a leader, a deep piety, devotion to St. Joseph. Like if you walked around the grounds, there's a lot of St. Joseph statues, a lot of St. Francis statues, which was very cool. And they were actually martyred by the British because, I mean, the British, man, just the worst. Like they were like,
Did
well,
not come
basically,
across well. No.
no, the Brits were not chill, and
Mm-mm.
they ended up martyring this man first, and they thought the best way to do it would be to crucify him, put him on a cross, just like his God, like his leader. And they had a fire under the cross. They were sticking the spears into the fire and then sticking it into his side, keeping him sustained basically so that they could, and then covering up the wounds with the heat so that he would be able to suffer for a long, long time. He actually received a vision from Mary, and Mary actually said to him, "Look into my eyes." This is Antonio. And he had before his death, this amazing moment where he called out to the rest of his braves who were kneeling there, having to watch him be crucified, saying, "Stay strong, brothers. Like we're going to heaven. I see her. I'm looking into her eyes." And so their cause for canonization is up right now. We learned about it from this amazing doctor there. And so we got to kind of be a part of that. We got to pray for them. We got to have mass in one of the oldest churches in America, oldest chapels in America. Just a really cool experience. But I think it was really shattering my conception of how missionaries came to America. I think I really internalized the narrative of like they came over with diseases and killed all the Indians, and that was it. Or the Christians came and they abused all the Indians. That was it. Go look up to this La Florida part of the country. It was a really amazing relationship between these Spaniards and the Indians, and the ability of the Franciscans to really be successful. Eventually, most of that was wiped out by the Brits because they're Protestant and the worst. But they actually had to tear down this chapel and rebuild it because the Brits were storing gunpowder in this chapel. Yeah, we got to pick up. Thanks, Nighthawk. Oh, also, we have someone giving us help with visuals here. His real name's Scott. He said, "Call me Nighthawk," so we'll see what I call him. But he pulled up the shrine here. It's America's oldest shrine, Our Lady of Leche in St. Augustine, Florida. Our Lady of Leche, actually, interestingly, is a beautiful image of Our Lady breastfeeding Jesus, which some people we were talking to was like, "Oh, this is a little bit weird." We see like the Virgin Mary's breasts. Is like, how do you feel about that? I was like, honestly, I don't know if it's just because the stage of life I'm in, but it's really beautiful. Like Jesus was fully human, and like that is the way that women connected and fed their children since the beginning of time. So Our Lady of Leche is also super powerful as well. It actually, these moms in the 50s, and the president of Catholic Vote has a weird connection to it, but started the Leche League, which many of you may be familiar with. It's a way to encourage breastfeeding as a natural option for women during a time when Big Pharma basically psyoped everyone into saying the only way to feed children is formula, which is not true. Spoiler, not true.
Well, and that was just an attempt to drive women into the workforce.
Right, it was part of that whole second wave feminism.
Which I got a great G.K. Chesterton quote this morning.
Oh man, just come on, man.
That was so good.
Do you have it?
So St. Augustine, it is neat.
Right.
It is neat. Like you mentioned the chapel there too, and it's like the oldest continuously occupied settlement of European origin in the contiguous United States.
Yeah, really cool. And I'm a fan of Our Lady of Leche. When it was announced we were going to go there for our mid-year meeting, being very pregnant at this point, I'm like on the end of my rope here, guys. But being there was really special. So anyone who's struggling with fertility, struggling with breastfeeding, which has never been terribly easy for me personally, you look it up. It's a great devotion and super comforting. So yeah, there's the chapel.
It's
Thank
always
you,
one of these
Nighthawk.
things that there's like, you ask like, what are the most obnoxious or, angry Facebook arguments? It always seems to be about like this kind of breastfeeding stuff, and people go off on it. And like, I think part of it is just that we live in a very Protestant Puritan view, which is like sex is, shameful. I mean, I don't think we should talk about it all the time, but there's, to me, nothing weird or, sexy about a woman breastfeeding of a kid. And if you freak out about it, I think you're the one that's weird. So like statues of Mary breastfeeding
right
Jesus, that makes sense. Like, yeah, like
it's what breasts are for, right?
Well,
like that's what it's the natural purpose.
Another cool part about Our Lady of Leche was many people in Spain have a strong devotion to her because she saved many mothers and children during horrible plagues in Spain. And so it's really believed that these medals that you can get blessed, Our Lady of the Leche medals, you can hand them out to expectant mothers, because that's just like an ancient devotion to
another reminder of, as you say, mother, Mary's motherhood. She is a human, and Jesus is human too. He took human form, and it's a reminder that we have a God who condescended, right? The big condescension, decides to enter human history, doesn't do it as a 40-year-old king. He does it as an infant king, a totally dependent king who depends on the Queen Mother to take care of him like this. And that's awesome. I love it.
It is awesome.
Another part of St. Augustine, man, just chock full of meaning. They were talking about the name Sacred Acre that it got. And JFK, I believe, either visited or was going to visit, and
he was
died
there
a few days later.
The week before he died.
After he visited this place. And the bishop at the time, Bishop Hurley, this was during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and that area was super hot because as a very, very close to Cuba, and there was actually different hangars hidden within the Everglades to potentially have to defend against a nuclear warhead coming over our head. And Bishop Hurley at the time had everyone pray to Our Lady, basically, to save America, save Florida from it. And many people there in that region, many Catholics, truly believed that like they were saved from the Cuban Missile Crisis by Our Lady. I mean, Our Lady of Guadalupe, Our Lady of the Americas. So really chock full of so much American history and different Catholic history. So it honestly, being there was it felt very spiritual, because we were doing our meetings and retreat on a place where a lot of graves were as well. It was kind of a grave site. The mass, the church there was beautiful. It was, I don't know how to describe it. If you ever get the chance,
you
really
guys moving.
Go.
Skip Disney World and go to St. Augustine. Seriously.
The Fountain of Youth too. That's a tourist trap. And more Protestant propaganda. I think that's more of just a Hollywood thing, kind of turning it into that. But the Fountain of Youth was not as big of a story as we've now made it to believe. So much of this was just Spanish settlement in America. So yeah, cool place. Definitely recommend checking it out. I learned a lot. Anyway, we move on now. Today is the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. And we actually, funny enough, at this retreat, we got a homily from our chaplain about the surest sign of the Holy Spirit in you is joy. And how for so long, I thought it was going to be marching forever before we ever, I didn't even think Roe v. Wade would ever get overturned personally. And to be in a place now where that has happened is something to be just really joyful about. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but just that first step, I think, is huge. And to see guys like Jim Harbaugh show up at the March for Life,
that was awesome.
Saying, you're setting a great example. Keep it up. Such a champion, I mean, shout out to all the U.of fans out there, but Harbaugh's been great on the pro-life stuff. So just shout out to anyone who went to the March for Life this year. It's a anniversary of Roe is a big day for the pro-life movement. And so, of course, the White House took that and is going into overdrive now about more ways to kill children, which is just crazy to say that out loud. But anyway, that's where we're at right now.
Right. Yeah. Kamala Harris, she did the speaking tour this weekend. Started off on The View, my favorite women's show. I mean, the gift that keeps on giving, talking about how with the overturn of Roe, women's lives are in danger. And then, of course, the White House, they put out a long statement about the tragedy of the death of Roe. Awkward phrasing there, but the statement, nothing surprising. And I know, Josh, we were talking about this before the show, just we've talked about this so much, but I think the White House statement today really does set the agenda for what we can expect from the radical pro-abortion extremist agenda over the next few months going toward the election. And what really stood out to me, number one, they're really pushing for the contraception. So in understanding here, they're not just talking like more condoms for people, but when they say contraception, that almost inevitably includes abortifacients. So we're talking about pushing abortifacients and availability on women everywhere. The second priority, the chemical abortion drugs, mifepristone, misoprostol. And these are currently the FDA's rushed approval of mifepristone back in the early, the late or mid 90s to early 2000s. That really rushed approval of it to the detriment of mothers, always the detriment of the child, obviously, who dies, but also to the detriment of women who are taking this dangerous drug. But the Biden administration just going full hog to push chemical abortion drugs everywhere. And then the third priority that was really emphasized in this document today was, I'm going to quote, the administration is committed to helping ensure all patients, including women who are experiencing pregnancy loss, miscarriage, and other pregnancy-related emergencies, have access to emergency medical care required under the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, or EMTALA. The reason this one really stood out to me is that we just saw a challenge in the Fifth Circuit Court. I believe it was the Fifth Circuit. They just rejected the Biden administration's attempt to use EMTALA, which is meant to save lives in the emergency room, to force doctors and nurses to perform abortions on women who come in who are pregnant. And the court rejected this. The Biden administration has sworn to challenge it all the way to the Supreme Court. We don't know if the Supreme Court will hear it yet, but for them to put this in their official statement that the Biden administration is committed to this narrative that, well, after the death of Roe, after Dobbs, we now have women who are having miscarriages who have to have an abortion going into emergency rooms, and they're dying of sepsis. This was Kamala Harris's whole monologue on The View, was they're dying of sepsis and they're never able to have children again because these doctors aren't being forced to give them abortions. And just the cognitive dissonance going on with this is astonishing, but also the hubris that they can totally ignore the conscience rights of doctors and physicians in these situations. And furthermore, blaming states that have abortion restrictions, so-called, for the death of women having miscarriages. I mean, Kamala was like, it's the law, it's these pro-life extremists, when in fact, there is nothing in any of these state restrictions that forbids treatment of miscarriage.
Of course.
When Dobbs first dropped, I went through and I read every single state that had a trigger law. And I have gone through every single state that has passed the law so far. Every single abortion restriction includes clear language to doctors that this does not cover ectopic pregnancy. This does not cover miscarriage. And for her to go on there and continue to push this falsehood that we are killing women with pro-life laws is absolutely unconscionable.
I would say the vice president knows she's lying, doesn't care she's lying, and the View hosts know she's lying and don't care that she's lying. They think it's a useful lie that will try to tell people these pro-lifers don't care about babies and they don't care about women either. It's all just a smoke screen to try to convince people that the pro-lifers are evil. That's all that matters.
Hey, and
it doesn't matter.
It's really important because these are conversations and these are accusations that come up in our workplace. They come up around our family holiday tables that, well, you don't care about women with miscarriages. It is so important that we as Catholics be equipped to shut that down. You have to be able to say that is an absolute falsehood. We've got the receipts, and to just shut it down. Don't turn it as, well, I feel like there would be exceptions. No, just say that's lie. That's a lie. Yeah. None of these laws speak to that.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to that compassion thing.
Right.
We have activists, Kamala Harris, the View activists, right? There's no, they're not like normal Americans having conversations about this, but that kind of language trickles down to people who aren't activists. So unless it's like aggressively countered, then people will believe that to be true. I mean, really anyone I think that has a middle of the road, kind of a little bit liberal mindset, they hear that and they're like, oh, well, we need, it needs to be abortions. But no, I'm done giving that ground.
The funny thing about it too is that it's like not even like, I mean, it's college freshman level tactics that they're throwing. Like it's so junior varsity. Like they're like, oh, then women can't get miscarriage coverage they need. Like, wait, what? I mean, I get a discussion about like this most extreme exception in this horrible situation. Oh my gosh. And it's like, we're not even having that discussion. I mean, we are, but then they're throwing out stuff as like, you want to lose your mind. You're like, well, you don't want women to, to get the appropriate care they need if they have a miscarriage.
So
What?
non
There's not a
sequitur.
human in the United States that wants to make it illegal for a woman to have care for a miscarriage. What are you smoking? But it's the Democratic Party. They probably are smoking something. My goodness.
Did you read through the Rubio memo, Erica?
I did. Yeah, I read through Senator Rubio. He also sort of the anti-White House statement on Friday ahead of the march. He released a pro-life state. What does it mean to be pro-life? And he really outlined an agenda for politicians, not for politicians, for policymakers, politicians, elected officials. What should be our top 3 priorities after Roe? And I thought he did such a great job, as he is want to do. But first priority, of course, is family law that supports the choice for life. It supports women and couples, families who are faced with a pregnancy that's unexpected or that has a difficult diagnosis, but that we actually have policies in place. This is not a libertarian approach, right? This is that we're using the resources of the state at the service of mothers. And I loved that section because he called it a false choice, right? A false choice between motherhood and opportunity that progressives present to women. And he says we have to break that down. Second priority, he wants to focus on exposing the truth of abortion extremism. And this is so important because it's a conversation that many progressives are still, it's hard to admit, yeah, I support abortion up until after birth for any reason. But he wants to really expose that and inform people about abortion, which is what we're trying to do here. And then, of course, the third point was really good too, because I think it gets lost, but that we have to make the moral core of the pro-life movement is protecting unborn humans. So while we want to care for them both, make more babies, Elon Musk, thank you. Which actually I want to ask you guys what you think about that in a second. But protecting life is the moral core of. Oh, look at the baby on the screen. Thanks, Nighthawk. My baby's actually kicking really hard right now. He's a fan. He's like,
you can hear
"Go, Marco Rubio." Yeah. So again, thanks to Marco Rubio for really standing out there and giving us an outline of practical steps. So
yeah, I feel like we're playing a little bit of Where's Waldo right now. I'm being a little bit cute with this, but somewhere in this video, this program is featured, is what I was told.
Yeah, there's a little loopcast. It's at 125 to be specific.
The senator's video.
125.
Cool. Yeah.
Well,
Rubio. Tom Poco shows up.
There he
is. Yeah.
Bam.
Go, Tom. You made it.
Maybe you two should play racquetball, or what is it?
I'll link that in the show notes. Everyone can go watch Pogo on Senator Rubio's promo video there.
What up? Cool guy. Sorry, Josh, what were you saying?
Well, I mean, I do think Rubio's good to try to come up with some creative legislative ideas, after Roe, to try to, make it easier for families and moms to say yes to life. I think that's great. Over the weekend, I got an advanced copy of my friend Tim Carney's book, Unfriendly America, where he just goes through so many aspects of American life. And he doesn't just talk about policy stuff, but he does talk about policy. But he talks about, all these other things that we can do to try to make it so that our culture and our families and our communities are pro-family. I'm looking forward to diving into that in future Loopcasts. But I echo what Rubio is talking about. We need to change the law to make it easier for moms to say yes. And we need a stronger, more pro-family culture, a stronger pro-family tax code.
Amen.
So kudos.
All right, Erica, Twilight Zone, and you are up first.
Oh boy, here comes Twilight Zone. So I'm going to go with the World Health Organization director. Showed up at Davos, the World Economic Forum. They all met at Davos in Switzerland last week, and some of you might have seen.
Did you get an invite?
Did I get an invite to Davos?
Yeah.
No, I did not this time. I'm excited for next year, though. Kevin Roberts from Heritage Foundation did, though, as did our friend Javier Milei, the libertarian president of Argentina. And they were able to bring a little bit of light to a very dark corner of the world. So that was fun to watch them. I'm going to link their speeches in the show notes because, oh man, they just ripped into these guys. But just a quick WEF 101 for the listeners. Why should you care? So the World Economic Forum was founded by a man named Klaus Schwab. You might have heard of him. Klaus is a economist, engineer from Germany, made billions and billions of dollars. And he started this World Economic Forum, the goal of which is sort of to remake the world in cooperation with the global elites. So he brings together what he calls a synergy. Scary word. It sounds like synodal, but synergy is kind of the synodal buzzword of the World Economic Forum. But we have mega corporations. We have the heads of state from governments all over the world. We've got NGOs, top academics and scientists and leaders, and you'll see people there like Fauci, and you'll see people there like the Chinese Communist Party. Some of those heads of states are there.
A lot of
And
private jets.
A lot of private jets, except for Javier Milei, who showed he flew commercial. It was awesome. It was so special. Got a little selfie there. I was like, hey, that looks like where I was last week. But anyway, so my my Twilight Zone is the World Health Organization director, because tons of UN guys, right? And his name, I'm going to butcher it. The Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus. He showed up at the World Health at the WEF, and he called upon countries to sign on to the UN's pandemic treaty. The pandemic treaty is how we are going to prepare for, quote, disease X. And disease X is the next COVID, which will be, he said, 90% more fatal than, yeah, there it is. There's the owl. It's going to come from the birds, apparently. So we've lost many people, he said, during COVID because, and here's the key, we couldn't manage them. And this is why the WEF matters to you and your children and your grandchildren, because their goal as the global elites is to manage you and your life and to sign treaties so that the next time, and he said it's not a matter of if, but when, the next time we get a global pandemic, the United States, in collaboration with all these massive governments and global elites, they have a protocol in place to manage you and to control you, and to tell you when you can go to mass, to tell you when you can have bodily autonomy, when you have to take the shot, etc. And again, it seems like, oh, they're so far away in Davos, Switzerland, this isn't going to affect me, blah, blah, blah. What is she talking about? But these are policies that have real world consequences. And we're fortunate to live in the United States, where we can live under this sort of, false assumption that this will never come to us and affect us. If you were in a Latin American country, if you were in the EU, you would already be seeing the effects of men like the Director General of the World Health Organization and their ideas about what's best for you controlling your life. And that's why
Nighthawk,
it matters. Nighthawk, what's up?
Can I put in a request? There is a new strain. It's not of COVID, but they've mutated a certain disease to kill mice with 100% kill rate. They're saying this is the next disease X. Can I put in a Google request for that?
I like Nighthawk. This is fun. So that's my Twilight Zone.
We should put in the show notes that clip by Kevin Roberts, head of Heritage, who made this great speech and just basically said, "I'm here to say you guys stink. Like elites terrible," and it was great.
Why did they invite him?
I want to give a little Catholic Boat shout out, because let me tell you something. Kevin Roberts, this was about 12 years ago. He had started a group called Catholic Families for America. And it was ostensibly a group to try to get Catholics engaged in the political process, tell them about what's going on, about the issues. And then he came to us and he said, "I looked at what you guys are doing at Catholic Vote and you're doing it better. I'd like to merge with you guys." I said, "Great, that's awesome."
Thanks, Kevin.
And he went on to go to greater heights. He went to Wyoming Catholic College, then he went to the Texas Public Policy Center, I think it's called, and now he's head of Heritage. So it's like
true hero.
It was just kind of neat. Like but I have to say though, like the humility, it was quite an honor that he said that, but it's like just the humility to say, why am I doing this? This other place is doing it better. And maybe God's got something else for me in store. It must have been what he was thinking. And it did. And kudos. Obviously I think it's kind of cool for us to Catholic Vote, but I also just mean it like, that's a great moment for someone. That's leadership. And leadership involves a lot of humility, and I think he's
that's
got
why
that
he's gotten.
spades.
It's the
So
real
That's where
deal.
he's
shout
gotten where
out
he's
to
gotten,
Kevin.
for sure. It's like if you have that collaborative spirit and you're just looking for excellence, like that's how you get to where those kind of heights. And to throw a middle finger at the WF is pretty awesome. I don't know why
On their
they
own
invite him.
stage. Well,
Why
so
they invited
every
him? Why they
no,
invite
so
Javier
every year they invite 2 or 3 token normal people to come and share the normal, like the average person's
Let's
perspective.
listen to the
And they
normies.
just, I think they were all sitting there like, this was the wrong normal guy to invite as they're listening to him go through
We'll have
this.
to
I'll
invite
link,
that
I'll link
All
it
right,
in the show notes.
LOOPcast guy next year.
update.
Mercer's up.
Nighthawk has the disease.
Okay, Nighthawk, what
That
do we
sounds
got?
like a terrible
What's
idea.
disease X? There it is. China.
Okay.
Oh, great. China.
Okay, the strain is 100% fatal in mice. The paper has not yet been peer reviewed, and the study is raising fears of a lab leak. So basically, all the main questions you'd have as to number one, why did they
Must
create
be
this?
presidential election cycle.
I mean, they don't have a good reason for why they created it. They also have other scientists talking about how this is morally reckless and dangerous if it escapes. They're like, do you have any protocols in case this gets anywhere? They basically said no.
Yeah.
So, like, what are we doing here, guys? What would possess someone to try to create something with 100% kill rate and then test it on these mice? I think the mice are like mutated to have like more human like characteristics or brains or whatever. Apparently their eyes turn white before they die in a day.
Okay,
So
all
if you see
right.
it, look, I'm deep in this
Well,
stuff because I saw the WHO
What would
stuff.
Joy
and I'm
Reid
like,
say about that?
don't worry, Joy Reid's coming up.
Oh, good.
Use her. So I'll get to Joy Reid. Thank you for the Google. Don't look it up; it'll scare you.
Yeah.
So now we have Josh. I believe you are up. Twilight Zone.
Well, I mean, I don't know Twilight Zone. I'm just good. I think this is kind of neat. The University of Dallas is poised to become the first college to host a permanent convent for the Nashville-based Dominican Sisters of St. Cecilia. So this congregation has witnessed remarkable growth, 64% since the year 2000. And now they have like 300 sisters with a median age of 36. And these Dominican sisters are involved in their ministry's education anyway. And so I just think it's, we've seen an explosion in some of these religious orders, like this one based out of Nashville. And there's one I love based in Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist in Ann Arbor. But a major shout out to the University of Dallas. And it kind of hurts for me to say this because my boss is a UD guy and we get a little I'm a Hillsdale guy. So, but just honest to goodness, major shout out to the University of Dallas to letting these sisters establish a permanent convent there on their campus. I think that's.
Let's just take a moment to zoom in on this picture. We just have
so much negativity in the church and in our country. This news is like a rose. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Zoom in on this picture. I mean, can you see a happier group of people right here? I mean, what an amazing. There's nothing better than being around joyful religious sisters or brothers. I mean, I've had the pleasure of a few times in my life getting to like on retreats or different things, and it just seems like there's a moral clarity and peace that comes with when you make that decision to dedicate your life there. You just get this amazing gift of just joy and simplicity. Like your life is simple, and that's a beautiful thing. So seriously, we need this more places is all I gotta say. What a great example for the college students as well to be around that. Awesome. That just makes you so happy.
That was a good one. Thanks, Josh. That was a good pick me up.
Good palate cleanser. But don't worry, I'll.
You're gonna take it down. I'll drag that right back down. Thanks, Pope.
Say the best for last. Is up to you, though.
So Joy Reid. Okay, we're gonna get to Joy Reid. She has a program in which she brings on people of different views to talk about sensitive topics. And she made the mistake of bringing on Tiffany from Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty is an organization devoted to giving parents at a local level power to control their children's education when it comes to public school. They've been wildly successful and have been basically the best thing I saw was someone made a meme about them. and it was like Moms for Liberty as like a mother bear defending her cubs, and it was like blood on the claws, and this was supposed to scare people somehow, and it's like it actually probably became their new
It was flattering.
emblem. I mean, it was just like, wow, moms being effective
Thanks
at
for the
protecting
logo.
their children. So we have the interview here. I'm just gonna run this first clip, talk about instant regret on Joy Reid for bringing this woman on, but Nighthawk, you want to run it?
Saw what some of the content was in the books. I mean, explicit, graphic, sexual content, and I'm happy to talk about some of that content if you'd like to.
Well, this is the question again. The books that are being banned, I want to give you just
No books are being banned.
No, hold on a second.
Well, no, Joy,
Leah.
but I want to be clear. No one's banning books. Write the book, print the book, publish the book, put the book in the public library, sell the book, right? We're talking about a public school library. Children don't have unfettered access to the internet at school. I did a FOIA records request, and I wanted to see what kinds of internet sites are banned in schools, if we're going to talk about banning, right? And the subject matter in the books that moms are concerned about are the same things that kids don't have access to on the internet. So it just feels very hypocritical, right? No, why is no one out there protesting for, free the internet in schools?
Let me give you.
Saw what some of the content was.
So sorry,
so
that was
good.
We need
So
to get,
good.
I don't know if you can find the other clip, Scott, but basically
That's why they hate her.
they hate her. That wasn't even
So
that wasn't the worst
poised.
of it. If I could finish the interview, basically she's like, well, what if you have a liberal parent who wants to put these kind of perspectives in kids' minds? And she brought up the book This Boy Is Blue, which was a humongous mistake. Like, she could have chosen so many different books, but she chose a book in which, kids in the car warning. I mean, again, this is so dumb that we keep having this conversation. It's about incestual rape, like incestual pedophilic rape of a child, with all the explicit graphic. It's pornographic. I mean,
Marketed to children. It is marketed.
It's put in a library, a public library of a school, with no input from any of these parents. So that's why people are upset. But like, you could have chosen one that maybe flirts a little bit more with the line. This was like choosing the worst possible option. She's like, well, what about this book? This Boy Is Blue. And then all of a sudden she just starts, this is it right here. I mean, this is so good. Yeah. All right. Play this one. This is it.
The content in this book.
So you go through without even having to read the book. I'm going to just hold it up so our audience can see what it looks like. This is the one for All Boys Aren't Blue, which is one of the books Moms for Liberty has.
Everyone should go and see the content in this book.
Got it.
And
so what happens is
Everyone should go.
You can do keyword searches and find certain keywords.
Like rape.
You can find
or anal rape or dildo.
You can find all sorts of
types
keywords.
of words. But like,
wait, hold on. Wait. Let me finish my question.
Okay,
Then
great,
you can answer.
sure.
I'm going to give you time to answer, but I got to ask you first.
No, yeah, I got my question.
And so what you find is the keywords that you find, the N word, anything, words like you just used, then you'll get out of context passages from the book. And then based on that, Moms for Liberty members are going to places like Broward County School Board meetings, reading out of context passages from these books, and then demanding that the school board remove them. So that is the way.
Out of context anal sex.
What is the expertise that you have and other Moms for Liberty advocates have to decide that a book, an award-winning book like All Boys Aren't Blue, isn't appropriate for students to read? What
a tragic story of a young man who's anally raped by his adult family member. So you have incest, rape, pedophilia. Joy, you said you'd let me answer, so I'm going to answer
Please
for you. In what context is a strap-on dildo acceptable for public school? That's my question to you.
That was that woman.
I mean, just this was like a takedown, not even for the language, just put up a explicit warning for how great of a takedown that was. I think she kept bringing up context, out of context. The reason I watched the full interview, she was talking about how she was trying to pin Moms for Liberty for using this website where they could find basically cliff notes of problematic books. Problematic being, I don't know, books about incest and pedophilia. And so she's like, well, people just go to this website and find it.
Get the talking
and then
points.
they go to the school board meeting and read it off. And the best part was, what context is like, what more context would you need to be like, this should not be in front of a child in a book? So, I mean, I think she went viral on Twitter or X now, and for good reason. I mean, she is like, she's so calm, focused, She had great answers. She is not someone I would want to come up with in a debate. So I don't know who put her
100%.
on that show. I mean, I can't
And
imagine.
now you know why the media hates her.
And I
Yeah.
think Joy Reid might have fired a couple people after that because she's like, you did not prep me. But it was a great interview. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Tiffany a couple of weeks ago. That interview is set to drop this week. So it was a great time. And I was a little more friendly to her than Joy. I just want to like, spoiler alert. We had a great conversation, and she's super poised, very well spoken, and she really is able to dig into the causes of what got us to where we are now and how to get out of it. So watch for that interview this week for sure.
Like Mama Bear in the best sense, like someone that is just not afraid. Like she doesn't care what people are going to call her, right?
No.
Like, who cares what Joy Reid says to me? Like, I'm protecting my children's innocence, and that is the number one priority. It's like we need more women like that. We need more women like that in the country, because the Mama Bear is truly going to save the kids. And I don't want to abdicate the fathers, because the fathers need to be involved in this as well. But there's nothing more powerful than seeing like a mom go to their school board meeting, look these strangers basically in the eye who make all the decisions in terms of what gets in front of their children, say, you're all disgusting and you should be gone because you're stealing the innocence of my child. There's no excuse for that. No excuse.
Not just my child. I'm concerned about all the children in this town.
Right.
Exactly. So
should be.
The cool thing about Moms for Liberty is it's very localized. So people often worry, we're too focused on the national level of what's going on. All these hard decisions are made because we're not paying attention to our local school board elections. That's why we always hammer that of course the presidential election is important, but arguably more important is who are we putting in these places of power to be in front of your children or other children in your community, as you mentioned. The answer isn't always, I'm just going to homeschool my children, problem solved. No, actually, you should be at these school board meetings too, being like, I don't want any kid in front of porn. Like, this is a cancer on our local society. So she was another feather in her cap, man. Another scalp, as Rufo was talking about, would not get in the way of Moms for Liberty. So that does it for this episode. Thank you for all that have joined on the live. This is a lot of fun. We're going to keep doing these on Mondays at noon. Hopefully keep growing, keep reaching more people. If you have time on your lunch break, come stop by, hang out with us. If you want to help us out, reviews, subscribe, like on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, shoot us a review there. We really appreciate it. If you want to talk to me, more mailbag. I'm all for more mailbag. If anyone wants to drop a question right now in the YouTube comments for us to answer, I'd be happy to feature that in a future episode, or you can email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. Other than that, we always end every show, St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, and Our Lady Guadalupe. Pray for us, and we will see you guys on the next episode. Peace.